Hello and welcome back to the Podcasting Problem Solver. I'm Leah Bryant, your go-to podcast growth strategist, and I investigate podcast growth problems so that you can stop guessing and start converting. I want to ask you something that might sting just a little bit. Just a little bit. Here it is. If your downloads doubled tomorrow, would you know whether that means more clients are coming? Or would you just cross your fingers and really hope that more clients are coming? Because I see this pattern a lot of podcasters either not looking at their dashboard at all, which I would never, ever, ever in a million years advise you to do. Or there's podcasters who are on the opposite end, refreshing their dashboards consistently, watching their download numbers move up or down, and then they're feeling completely lost about what it really means. They might have like this moment of their download stall and then immediately think, oh, I must be doing something wrong. Or on the opposite end, it could be their downloads are climbing and then they think, well, why isn't my calendar filling up? And here's what gets me every time. Both groups are typically tracking the same exact thing, which happens to be the wrong thing. And today, we're talking about the one metric I look at first when I am uncovering whether a podcast is really converting, and why ignoring this metric can keep you stuck in guessing mode. Okay? So by the end of the episode, you're going to know why downloads can be wildly misleading, what metric actually shows you the truth, and how this fits into the momentum phase of my seamless podcast framework. So, downloads feel productive, right? Sure, they're clean, numeric, and they give you that little dopamine hit when they start to trend up. We've all been there. But here's what downloads really tell you. They tell you who pressed play, who requested your episode from your hosting platform, and that's it. They don't tell you if it's the right people listening or if anyone's paying attention past the intro. And they don't tell you whether anyone's even thinking about hiring you. And this is how you end up in one of those two very frustrating camps that I mentioned. My downloads are meh, so clearly my podcast is failing, or my downloads are growing, my business is still standing still. See, they're both the same core issue, but just different ways in how they show up. And they're actually both momentum problems. And momentum, well, that requires tracking what people really do, like how they move, instead of just counting who showed up. All right, so here it is. No drum roll or dramatics needed, at least this episode. The metric is what I like to call a listener action rate, okay? To put it plainly, this is how many of your listeners take an intentional step after they hear your episode. Now, this intentional step could be clicking a link in your show notes, visiting a specific page you mentioned, downloading a free resource, sending you a DM, joining your email list. I don't care which action it is at first, but I care that there is one and that you're tracking it. And if you're not tracking any of those links in your podcast host, please send me a DM so I could tell you how to do that quickly, okay? Because momentum is about creating direction, right? If people are moving toward you, I don't care if it is slow, even just one small step at a time, you know what? Your podcast is doing its job. If they're consuming and then vanishing, here today, gone tomorrow, that, my friend, is your signal that tells you something needs to shift. And listen, if you're sitting here thinking, Leah, I have no idea if my listeners are taking action or just disappearing into thin air, well, you are in luck because that's exactly what we figure out together in my podcast growth audit. I help you see what's really happening with your podcast so you can stop guessing, start building real momentum, and that link is below. Let me tell you about a client who came to me feeling pretty confident about her podcast. And these are her words. Leah, my downloads are really good. I just think I need to promote more. Okay, you know me by now. I immediately said, well, let's investigate that. Okay. So we dug into the data, and here is what I found. She had solid download numbers, but she had zero, big fat zero clicks on our main call to action. No clear, consistent next step mentioned on the show, and listeners were consuming her content and then disappearing into the witness protection program. So what did I tell her? I didn't want her to change her content. I wasn't going to tell her to add more episodes, and I sure as heck was not going to tell her to overhaul her whole entire brand. Nope, not at all. I clarified one specific action. We made it sure that it aligned with her offer, and then made it completely unmistakable on every episode. And you know what happened? Within weeks, her downloads actually dipped a smidge, but email signups went up. And she got her first client who specifically said the podcast was why I reached out. Boom, momentum restored. Hear me when I say this. That's the difference between putting out noise and actually being a signal into the world, okay? And that's why this conversation lives in the momentum phase of my Seamless Podcast framework, because momentum is all about tracking what matters, noticing patterns before they become a problem, and knowing something's working even before you see it show up as revenue, okay? Because downloads, yes, they can lag behind, but that action happens first. And when you're only tracking downloads, you're essentially driving forward while staring in your rear view the whole time. And how helpful is that? Not at all. Momentum asks a simple question. Are listeners moving closer to me? Yes or no? See how easy that was? And if your answer is, I have no idea, that's okay. That just means you're missing a system. And the best thing is that systems can be built. Hooray! And here's what I want you to walk away with. If your podcast isn't converting, it's more than likely because you're measuring applause instead of measuring behavior. Yep. So I want you to pick one intentional action. Make it super easy for people to take. And I want you to track whether they do it. Then I want you to watch what changes. And that's how momentum gets built, friends. Quietly, strategically, and sustainably. One of my recent audit clients from last week, Cindy, told me this after her session. She said, I went from guessing and tweaking to having a clear strategy I can stick to. I didn't leave with vague suggestions. I left knowing exactly what to do next and how to keep it simple. I'm not guessing anymore. And that's exactly what happens when you stop tracking vanity metrics and start looking at what really matters. If you're ready to stop guessing what's working and get a clear strategic plan for your podcast growth, then I want you to book a podcast growth audit with me. I'll help you see exactly what's happening with your show and give you a 90-day plan to implement it consistently. The link is below. Until next time, keep your podcast purposeful, keep tracking metrics that really matter, and above all else, keep your growth seamless. And I'll see you next time.